In an ant's world, a single raindrop is as deadly as a tsunami, and I was caught right underneath one. The massive sphere of water hung above me like a liquid planet, ready to crash down with the force of 1,000 suns. Time slowed. My 6 legs scrambled against the rough concrete, searching for any crack, any escape route. This was it, this was how my story would end. But how did I get here? How does any ant story truly begin? Let me take you back to the day I opened my eyes for the first time. I was born in the darkness of our underground city, a maze of tunnels carved beneath a human sidewalk. The first thing I learned wasn't walking or eating, it was fear. Fear of the trembling ground above when giants walked by. Fear of the crushing weight that could end everything in an instant. But also, I learned something else, the power of being small in a world built for giants. My name? Well, ants don't have names like humans do. We have scents, chemical signatures that tell our family who we are. But for you to understand my story, call me Scout. Because that's what I became, a scout, an explorer, one of the brave few who ventured beyond our safe tunnels into the dangerous world above. The colony was everything to me. 3,000 sisters, all working with one purpose, survival. Our queen, massive and magnificent, sat in the deepest chamber, laying eggs that would become tomorrow's workers. The soldiers with their powerful jaws guarded our entrances. The nurses tended to the young. And scouts like me? We were the eyes and legs of the colony, venturing into the unknown to find food and report dangers. But on this particular morning, something felt different. The air carried a strange electric charge, and the older workers whispered in chemical signals I couldn't quite understand. Storm coming, they said. Big storm. I should have listened. But then, everything I knew about my small world was about to change forever. The entrance to our colony was hidden beneath a crack in the sidewalk, invisible to the giants who thundered overhead. When I first emerged into the world above, the sunlight hit me like a physical force. Everything was massive, overwhelming. Blades of grass towered like trees. A discarded bottle cap seemed like a building. And the sounds, oh, the sounds were deafening. But there was something beautiful about this giant world too. The way morning dew caught the light, creating rainbow prisms on flower petals. The sweet scent of nectar drifting from flowers that seemed as tall as skyscrapers. The intricate patterns of leaf veins that looked like highways in the sky. My first mission was simple, find the crumb. Our scouts had detected it yesterday, a piece of bread, fallen from a human sandwich, lying somewhere in the vast concrete desert they called a park. For our colony, this crumb could feed dozens of ants for days. But finding it in this immense world, that was the challenge. I followed the faint chemical trail left by the previous scout, a pathway invisible to humans but clear as a highway to my antennae. Left at the giant metal pole, straight past the terrifying canyon of a storm drain, careful around the sticky trap of spilled soda that had claimed 2 of my sisters last week. The journey that would take a human 10 steps took me nearly an hour. Every pebble was a boulder to climb over. Every small wind gust threatened to lift me off the ground. And always, always, the shadow of danger loomed above. That's when I saw it, the crumb. Beautiful, golden, nearly half my size. It sat in the middle of an open area, perfectly positioned but impossibly far from any shelter. Too perfect. Too easy. In nature, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But my colony was hungry. 3 days without significant food had left our youngest struggling. The decision was mine to make, retreat to safety or risk everything for the crumb that could save them all. I chose courage over caution. That's when the first drops began to fall, and I realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. The sky had been clear moments before, but weather changes fast when you're tiny. The first raindrop hit the concrete 20 ant lengths away from me, exploding like a bomb and sending vibrations through my legs. Then another. And another. I was trapped in the open, too far from any shelter, with nowhere to run. Each drop that hit the ground created a crater the size of my entire body. The sound was deafening, like standing inside thunder itself. The air filled with mist and the overwhelming scent of wet concrete. But here's what most creatures don't understand about being small: when you're light enough, surface tension becomes your friend. As the first drop fell directly toward me, I did something that defied everything I'd been taught. Instead of running, I jumped up to meet it. The water enveloped me like a liquid cocoon, but instead of crushing me, it carried me. I rode the surface tension, using my hydrophobic exoskeleton to stay on the surface rather than drowning inside. The drop bounced when it hit the concrete, and I was launched several ant lengths away, tumbling but alive. The rain was getting heavier. More drops fell, creating a dangerous maze of water craters around me. But now I had a strategy. Instead of fighting the water, I would use it. Each drop became a potential vehicle, each splash a chance to get closer to safety. I spotted my target, a small overhang where the concrete had cracked, creating a tiny cave just large enough for an ant. It was 12 drops away, 12 deadly, precise jumps I would have to make. The first jump landed me on the rim of a puddle. The second carried me across a stream that, to me, was like crossing a raging river. By the third, I was getting the rhythm, timing the drops, reading the patterns of the storm. But then something unexpected happened. As I prepared for my fourth jump, I wasn't alone anymore. Another ant emerged from a crack in the concrete, not one of my sisters, but a member of a rival colony. In our underground world, meeting another colony's scout usually meant conflict. Territory disputes. Chemical warfare. But here, in the middle of a storm that threatened us both, something different happened. She looked at me, I looked at her, and in that moment, survival meant more than territory. Without a word, or rather, without a chemical signal, we began working together. When I jumped toward a drop, she would position herself to break my fall. When she needed to cross a particularly wide puddle, I became her stepping stone. Together, we reached the shelter just as the real downpour began. Pressed together under the tiny concrete overhang, two enemies became temporary allies. We shared the space, our antennae occasionally brushing, communicating in the universal language of survival. And that's when I learned the most important lesson of my small life. Being tiny in a giant world isn't just about avoiding danger, it's about finding connection in unexpected places. That rival ant and I spent 3 hours together under our concrete shelter, waiting out the storm. During those hours, she taught me chemical signals from her colony that meant safe passage and food source. I shared with her the patterns my scouts had discovered for reading weather changes in the vibrations of the ground. When the storm finally passed, we emerged into a world transformed. The rain had washed away old scent trails but also revealed new opportunities. Earthworms had surfaced, providing protein for our colonies. Fresh seeds had been scattered by the wind. The bread crumb I'd originally come for was gone, dissolved by the rain, but something much more valuable had taken its place. We discovered a dropped apple core, fresh and huge, enough food to feed both our colonies for weeks. Instead of fighting over it, we did something unprecedented. We divided it. Half for her family, half for mine. The first inter-colony cooperation anyone could remember. I returned to my colony that day not just with food, but with a new understanding of what it meant to be small in a giant world. Yes, we face dangers that larger creatures can't imagine. A single footstep can end our entire universe. A raindrop can become a natural disaster. But being small also means being adaptable, resourceful, and capable of connections that transcend traditional boundaries. My sisters welcomed me back as a hero, not just for the food I'd brought, but for the diplomatic breakthrough I'd achieved. The chemical signature of safe passage from the rival colony opened up new territories for exploration, new sources of food, new possibilities for survival. But the most important thing I learned that day wasn't about survival tactics or diplomacy. It was about perspective. When you're tiny, every moment is precious because every moment could be your last. Every crumb is a feast. Every safe shelter is a palace. Every sunrise is a miracle. The giants walking overhead will never know that beneath their feet exists an entire civilization. They'll never realize that their discarded lunch became a feast for thousands. They'll never understand that the pest they try to eliminate is actually a master of survival, cooperation, and adaptation. Subscribe and comment. The most inspiring part of this tiny world is about to be revealed. 6 months after that storm, something extraordinary happened. The cooperation between our two colonies had grown into something unprecedented, an alliance. Together, we'd mapped the entire park, created supply routes that avoided human traffic patterns, and established emergency protocols for weather disasters. But more than that, I had changed. I was no longer just a scout, I had become a bridge between worlds. My chemical vocabulary now included signals from 12 different colonies. I could navigate not just the physical geography of the giant world above, but the social geography of ant civilization below. The breadcrumb I'd failed to retrieve on that stormy day had been replaced by something infinitely more valuable: knowledge, connection, and the understanding that survival isn't just about individual strength, it's about community, cooperation, and the courage to help others even when they're supposed to be your enemies. Today, when young ants prepare for their first journey to the surface, they learn the storm protocol, a set of survival techniques born from my experience under that raindrop. They learn that sometimes the most dangerous moments become the most transformative ones. They learn that being small doesn't mean being powerless. And sometimes, when the weather is just right, I still meet that ant from the rival colony. We share food sources, weather warnings, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that two tiny creatures managed to change something in this giant world. Every morning when I emerge from our tunnels into the sunlight, I carry with me the knowledge that today might bring another raindrop, another challenge, another chance to choose courage over fear. Because in the end, that's what being born as an ant taught me: it's not the size of your world that matters, it's the size of your courage to explore it. Share and subscribe to keep this journey alive. Because every small story deserves to be heard, and every tiny life has the power to create enormous change. The giants above will keep walking, never knowing that beneath their feet, civilizations rise and fall, heroes are born, and tiny miracles happen every single day. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you see an ant carrying something too big for its size, you'll remember that you're watching one of nature's greatest survivors in action. That's the world I was born into. That's the life I chose to live. And that raindrop that almost ended everything? It became the beginning of everything instead. But there's something else I need to tell you, something that happened just last week that proves how much our tiny world continues to evolve. A new threat arrived in our park: construction workers with heavy machinery. The vibrations from their equipment shook our tunnels like earthquakes, forcing multiple colonies to evacuate their ancestral homes. This time, it wasn't just two colonies working together. The network I'd helped build, 12 different ant communities, came together in the largest cooperative rescue operation in our collective memory. We established temporary shelters, shared food supplies across traditional territorial boundaries, and created new tunnel systems in record time. I watched colonies that had been enemies for generations carry each other's young to safety. I saw scout ants from different families teaching each other evacuation routes. In just 3 days, we'd rebuilt not just our physical homes, but our entire understanding of what community could mean. The humans above never noticed. To them, we were still just ants, faceless, identical, replaceable. But beneath their feet, a revolution in cooperation was taking place. We had learned that survival wasn't just about individual colonies anymore. It was about building something larger, something that could withstand any storm, any threat, any challenge the giant world could throw at us. As I write this story in the chemical signals that will be read by generations of ants to come, I'm reminded that being born small doesn't limit your impact, it just changes how you measure it. Every connection matters. Every act of courage ripples outward. Every choice to help instead of harm makes the world a little bit better. That's the world I was born into. That's the life I chose to live. And that raindrop that almost ended everything? It became the beginning of everything instead.